including Uasin Gishu County.
With me in the studio is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, Anthony Buluma. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your time is all appreciated. Leila Hassan Duale is an advocate of the High Court. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Your company is worthy. Nathaniel Mongare is the Director, ICT and Programs at the ANC Party, which is an affiliate party of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. Thanks for your time. Patricia Njiriwa is a public policy analyst. Your time is all appreciated. And also with us in the studio is Nora Bosibore, who is a policy analyst. Your time is all appreciated.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, and what a time to talk about governance from the perspective of young Kenyans in relation to what you have heard speakers expressing at the devolution conference in the county of Uasin Gishu. I first begin with you, Nora Bosibore. That is certainly a statement with intent made by the president and putting on notice corrupt government officials that it will no longer be tolerated, whether at the national or at the county level. Is that sufficient enough, I mean, against the backdrop of the effect corruption has had in the affairs of running Kenya?
Thank you. First of all, we have to appreciate where we've come from as a country. You know, previously, we have seen how the DCI and the DPP have been working. You know, we have seen how they were used as pawns previously and militarized and used to fight competition amongst dissenters and for political expediency. So I'm glad that now we have a direct clarion call from the President of the Republic of Kenya and calling directly to the DCI and the DPP to act, you know, to take action, not to just talk. So this is a good call to make sure that now we are on the right track so that there is accountability and integrity within the public service. So I'm glad we are taking the first step towards the right direction in ensuring that we can be able to account of every shilling spent within the public service.
Patricia, what's your take on that call by the president, which he again re-amplified yesterday in Kiambu County, saying, look, you Kenyans pay your fair share of taxes on time. Ask me about the accountability questions as to how we are putting your money into use, whether it's the aspect of proper use of that money. Does it inspire hope in young Kenyans like you?
It does, and it's a very important conversation, and I'm glad he raised it, and I'm glad he really drew attention to the fact that it had been left out in the speech that was read before by the chair of Council of Governors, and he said, let's all bring our focus on this very important issue, because we've been seeing what's been happening in Uasin Gishu County this week in matters to do with, you know, accountability. And so it was important for him, being in Uasin Gishu County, being from there, that is his hometown, it was important for him to raise this issue. And you see, public leaders, we place them in a position of public trust. You know, we put trust in them when we appoint them to these positions and elect them in these positions. And so it's important that we remind them, hey, we are trusting you. Yeah. And so the young people of this nation are trusting them that when you have your duties and responsibilities, you will carry the, the integrity, you uphold the integrity of the office. That's our expectation as the young people.
Nathaniel, I mean, how does this better we'll talk about the social fabric, but our governance model here, because that call was to people who are in positions of policy, and that their focus should be the people and not their selfish interests, because in the end they are paid and they're well catered for.
Abdi, good morning and thanks for having me. First of all, I'm happy that the president is living up to the biblical saying that to whom much is given, much is expected. And he's putting out clearly that the intention of his government is to represent truly what was bestowed to him by the people on 9th of August. And we hope that the fight against corruption does not end with a talk, because the president is a symbol of what espouses national issues. But remember that the fight against corruption is like a conveyor belt. There are so many players involved in the fight against corruption, from the office of the DPP, doing the investigations, to the police, to the judiciary. And sometimes there is a break in the conveyor belt. So that's why we are losing many corruption cases in court. My suggestion would be that going forward, that on the fight against corruption, we must start considering using audit reports that have been audited by the Auditor General and already been approved by the Senate or the National Assembly as evidence in court. Because most of the audit reports that have been, they are published, they are lying on the shelves, they have damning allegations against many public officials, but those audit reports are just on the shelves. But those audit reports cannot be used as the law is presently constituted as evidence in a court of law.
And Laila, as an advocate, then we have seen disjointed efforts by, for example, the former occupants of the offices of the DCI and the DPP, and differences that also played in the public gallery. When the head of state speaks this way and has nominated a new DPP, though it's an independent entity altogether, a new DCI also in place, which is led by Amin Mohammed, does it point to perhaps what Nathaniel has called the need for a well-established criminal justice system that comes up with conclusive evidence and the threshold met that will be before courts of cases for successful convictions?
Thank you for that. One thing that should happen is there should be absolute independence in the three arms of the government. When there's absolute independence, the judiciary will be able to act accordingly. But once there's political interference in the three arms of the government, then it poses a challenge to, for example, the DCI to work effectively. We saw in the previous government there was a lot of political influence, even in there was a lot of political prosecutions, which of course there is no justice in that. If an official is found, probably there's sufficient evidence against this person should be prosecuted and this person should be convicted. And if the president decides, say we saw there was the presidential mercy issue where we had a person who held a senior position, he was given pardon. The public ought to be allowed to see why there was need for this person to be pardoned by the president. Again, there should be independence in the judiciary. We saw there's a lot of back and forth as to why the judge was in charge of who had the financial bill application before court. That judge was transferred to Malindi. Why? We need the judiciary to be independent for it to sufficiently dispense justice. That is our call.
Look, you read the transfer of Lady Justice Thande Mugure as political?
There's malice to that. And I don't fear saying that.
Okay, the judiciary says in a statement this is the normal and the regular process that normally it undertakes in terms of placing its people and populating them across the country. You otherwise read political.
Yes, I do read politics in that, and that is my opinion.
Okay.
Yes.
Anthony, as the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, and further this discussion will also revolve around how to better our governance model from the perspectives of young Kenyans, of course, you included, because you're just a sample of the many Kenyans who will want to project their voices. Talk to me about this and the contrasting question here on the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, who said, look, we are losing 2 billion Kenya shillings a day, that is 720 billion Kenya shillings a year. There was no accompanying surety as to what needs to be done to fix that problem. Here comes his successor, William Ruto, who says and puts on notice corrupt government officials. Again, in both cases, the President of the Republic of Kenya at no time has no prosecutorial powers. That rests in independent government agencies. There needs to be, again, accompanying surety as to what needs to be done next. What needs to happen, in your view?
Ayub, first of all, thank you for every Friday hosting young people here and giving us a voice so that we can also communicate to Kenyans our thoughts about many things happening in the country. I must say that I quite associate with what my colleagues have shared in terms of the way out on corruption. But equally, I would want to qualify what the president has said by, first of all, providing a fair understanding on what the role of the president of Kenya is. You realize that this is an individual who operates on privileged information that you and me do not have on a daily basis. So by the time he opts to take up a stage and actually pronounce himself very clearly, and literally what he's doing, he's daring. He's daring those who perpetuate corruption. He's daring them and telling them, I have a sword, and this sword has a purpose, symbolically. And I have every intention, unlike my predecessors, to use this sword. Because remember, President Uhuru only commented and mentioned that as a country we are losing. What are you telling taxpayers? Are you giving them hope as they pay their taxes? But on the contrast, President Ruto wants to inspire that taxpayer and communicate directly to them that it's my business to deal with those who are stealing your money. I fairly have an idea of the loopholes. So I'm just putting them on notice that is not business as usual. I think what the president is trying to do is press the reset button so that those who have the tendencies of eloping with public money can begin to realize that it's not business as usual. I think what those words must be matched with, Ayub, is action. The new DPP must swiftly move to office if approved by the National Assembly, and immediately revisit all existing corrupt files and demonstrate the goodwill the president has already communicated. Because, you know, Ayub, the president is a symbol of national unity. That also stretches to the fact that he communicates the direction the country should go. So in as much as we will apportion blame, we will want him to do more than that, but at the end of the day, this was a call to action, not just to the structures of government, but even as citizens. Yeah. It's about time we begin to see citizen oversight of some of these functions, because yes, these structures are independent, but are they doing enough? If they are not, who will put them to task? It is me and you and the structures or the individuals we've elected in office. So I feel strongly that, and the fact that we are celebrating the new constitution and devolution, there are so many new things that have been introduced that require our own goodwill. We have a rallying call from our president. Let us take up our patriotic duty and actually live up to those words that he's pointing out to. If there are offices that are not functional, it's about time we call them out so as to ensure that the president's words are not just mere words, because this is the head of state, Ayub. This is the man who took the only oath to occupy one office in Kenya, which is the presidency. Yeah. You know, governors took oath, there are 47 of them, but we are only one symbol of unity. So my conviction is that we can ride on this goodwill because he gives a sense of direction. He gives confidence that he understands where we are coming from. He understands that the country is losing, but he equally understands that it also stops, the buck stops at him to ensure that he provides leadership on this particular issue. And mark you, the signs are here with us, because by the time he was making that pronouncement, is around the same time he forwarded the name of the proposed DPP to the National Assembly. So there seems to be something cooking that probably him and those close to him understand. And again, Ayub, we have been trying to really associate ourselves with the success of Singapore. And one of the key highlights of the Singapore transformation was the ability to fight corruption. So I am hoping that we are still reading from the same script, that it's possible to actually deal with corruption and deal with it to its conclusion. Okay,
thank you. Because running a country like Kenya needs or requires expertise in administration, looking after the resources of the public or belonging to the Kenyan public. And yesterday, the head of state in Kiambu County again amplified the very same call he made in Uasin Gishu County, saying, pay your fair share, leave the rest to me. I was given the Bible and the Constitution and also the sword, which he talked about. And Lee Kuan Yew's statement, as you have said, which was the cracking down on corruption and awarding, qualifications based on merit and the qualification needed. We'll talk about the role of the young people and young Kenyans you included in the devolved system of governance that was ushered in by Katiba 2010. Bosibore, I come to you because the president talked about that at length, and we have seen serious indictments made by the Auditor General in successive reports about how the county cash across the devolved units have been stolen by governors, some impeached out of office for that gross violation of the Constitution. Did we, when we devolved power and resources, also devolved corruption and nepotism to the counties?
Well, first of all, the devolution in itself is a great thing to this country. Because ideally, what we were trying to do is to provide access to public services at the grassroots level, and of course to foster governance too. So looking even at the theme for this year's devolution being 10 years of devolution, the present and the future, right? I was also looking at the sub-themes, and one of it is driving transformation at the local level. My point is that even as we gather to seek global best practices and methodologies within the devolution framework, we have to exactly know where our hits and misses are. You know, we are 10 years old. A lot has been done, and a lot has not been done. People have said that we devolved egos, you know, and corruption to the grassroots. Of course, you can see how there's wastage of resources at the county level. Every governor has a fleet of cars, plus, you know, security and a lot of personnel. Every county, you know, together with their counterparts, the chief officers, and everybody else working within the county framework. So what we don't really understand is what working within the public service entails, you know, because leadership, public leadership, is not a fight for egos. We have to serve our people with patriotism and benevolence. So, but then we understand that we have a bad culture of embezzlement of funds, and of course, corruption and integrity levels. And it starts from the basics, you know, growing up. How do we raise our children? You've seen people going all over TV saying, pesa si ya mama yako. You know, when people have stolen our money from the exchequer, going towards a primitive accumulation of wealth. And that is the greatest challenge even in Kenya right now, because those people who accumulate wealth are the same people who are coming to disturb us at the grassroots when it comes to voting and elections, because then they use that wealth to marginalize us, you know, and to bribe voters. So my point is that if we can strengthen institutions like EACC and the DPP, so that we can be able to know what and who exactly owns the country, to what extent, then we can be able to make sure that the public service attracts people of high integrity, and that we can take into account everybody's wealth.
Of course, to be clear, Kenya belongs to the Kenyan people.
Thank you.
And that's what the Constitution of Kenya says, and that we are all equal before the law. Gave ourselves one of the most transparent, eloquent, and transformative constitutions admired by many across the world. But Patricia, coming to you, when you look at all these problems that dot the administration of counties across the country, for example, where the conference is happening, the former governor, now senator, is now on trial for allegedly siphoning money from the coffers of student programs that were meant to educate young Kenyans from Uasin Gishu County. I have mentioned the Auditor General's report, concerns over how some counties are run. I mean, is it a misunderstanding of the devolved concept by the county chiefs, or this is just a continuation of the bad habit at the top now brought to the counties?
You know, I'm reminded of this phrase, this quote by Carl Jung that says, man is a wolf to man. And it sort of gives this grim picture of how nasty we can be to each other as humans, you know? Because like we said earlier, these people have been entrusted with positions of trust, public trust. We've given you the social contract, you know? We've given you that authority. We've given you the access to these taxes. You're supposed to use them well in a way that benefits the whole community. And so what we saw in Uasin Gishu, the case you've just mentioned, it's tragic. It's actually painful to watch. I don't know if you're being able to watch, because when some of those parents come on the screen to describe what they've been through and the sacrifices that they had to undertake to be able to you know, pay that money for their children to get access to scholarships, I mean, it's tragic, Ayub. So, I mean, it's a horrible situation, and we are glad that the law has taken course. We are glad that you know, the governor is being held, former governor is being held to account. And let's see, because once he's used as this sort of like the symbol of what's going to happen if this keeps going on under this administration. I feel like we're heading in the right direction. Yes.
Nathaniel, the concept of devolution to bring resources closer to the people and having the leadership closer to the people as well to hear and craft laws that the county level affect their progress positively. But how then can we address the problems that are affecting or hampering this baby called devolution for the counties to progress further? Because without that, or having the answer to these problems, then certainly we are going to be stuck.
You're spot on, Abdi. You know, in 1963, when Kenya was a new republic, we had a majimbo system, which is similar to devolution today. And it only survived for 3 years. There were many challenges, but among many other reasons why it folded was the reason that there was an imperial presidency at the time that did not want power to go back to the people or decentralize resources or decision-making back to the people. This is why the first Senate was dissolved and the first majimbo system collapsed. Now, fast forward to 2010, we have a very beautiful baby, and many people died for it. If you remember, in 2005, there is a doctor called Dr. Crispin Bai. He died because he was the chair of the devolution thematic group during the Bomas constitution-making conference. People died to see devolution see the light of the day. So it is such a beautiful story for the country that if we unleash its potential, as you've rightly put it, that we will have a country that will turn around in a magical way. If you see the questions that the people are asking, of what the expectations of the people on the devolved systems are so high. Today, if you did a referendum to say that we wanted to reduce the number of counties, you will see the referendum will fail because people are so close to devolution because they are seeing it closer to them. It is bringing power to the doorstep of the people. What needs to be addressed are the oversight institutions. For example, we have 2 oversight institutions on the devolved system. We have the county assemblies and we have the Senate. And generally, the governors are supposed to be held accountable by the people and by their oaths of office. But if you look at the county assemblies, for instance, which are supposed to oversight the governors, most of the county assemblies are ineffective. And with all due respect to the MCS, the county assemblies are supposed to be oversighting the governor on a daily basis. But you'll go to counties, you will see there is an unholy arrangement between governors and the county assemblies on issues like World Development Fund. The MCS will be given some X million of money in the form of World Development Fund to decide. They will decide the contractors. They will decide to get the tenders for these funds. And in such a manner, the quality of oversighting the governors will go down because it creates an unholy alliance. The question of accountability will not be there. Most of the county assemblies also will be held captive by political parties. For instance, my party ANC, if we have a majority in a county assembly and the governor is our governor, I'm not saying that that's what we do at the party, the quality will go down because sometimes you say, this is our governor. And many parties are doing this because they don't want to oversight their own governance. And the beauty with governance is that one must be a reliable watchdog of their own principles. And this is something that we must work towards as a nation. So the second part is on the issue of the Senate. Senate has very many beautiful reports. There is a Senate Accounts Committee that is always auditing these the audit books for the counties. But what happens to the audit reports from counties? What needs to happen, Abdi, is an amendment to the law to allow the use of audit reports as evidence in prosecuting corruption cases.
Okay, and Leila and Anthony, I'll come back to you after the break on the quality needed at the county level, whether there is that understanding and whether the MCAs, who are at the lowest unit of administration, are championing or are the avenues to champion the cause of the public. And you're watching Daybreak. Thanks for staying with us. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We welcome your contributions as well here on the broadcast, and we'll sample them towards the end of this broadcast here on Daybreak. After the break, stay tuned.